All right. Okay, we are live. Just got confirmation. So we're here because driving is the most dangerous thing that any of us do on a daily basis, especially, or I guess I shouldn't say especially, but even when we have our kids in the car or when we're pregnant. And at Safe Ride for Kids, our job, our company mission is to help you arrive safely every time with your family. So we do that by introducing you to very cool, innovative safety products that help you be safer, you and your children be safer in the car. And we provide you with awesome education blog and our Facebook page and our posts and all of that. So we kind of have a dual mission of education, information, and really cool, innovative products. And today we're here to talk about the Tummy Shield, which is a seatbelt positioner for pregnant women. So we're really happy that so many of you are here today. We're not going to be able to interact with you very much live during the presentation, but we will invite you over to our booth at the end, and then we'll have some time to answer all your questions over there. So who am I? I'm Greg DeRocher, co-founder, and CEO of Safe Ride for Kids. Here with Amy behind the camera doing our tech support, who is my wife and co-founder. We are both child passenger safety technicians and have been for over a decade. I'm coming up on 2 decades. And I'm also an instructor of the child passenger safety technician certification curriculum. I've been doing that for almost 20 years as well. My background is I got started in all of this kids and car seat safety stuff when I was on the fire department as a firefighter paramedic and doing the extracurricular injury prevention programs on the side. So why are we here talking about the Tummy Shield and pregnancy and seatbelt? I think it's going to be best to really take a close look at how does the seatbelt actually work on a human being. And Amy's going to grab the camera and come over. This is Mrs. Bones, our demo here. Pretty close to an anatomically correct skeleton, but certainly good enough to do what we need to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at how does the seatbelt actually work on an adult occupant. And we're going to start with just the skeleton here. So if you notice here on the hip bones are these 2 notches. And if you reach down on your own hip bone, you can feel these notches at the top of your hips. That's the spot where the seatbelt is intended to engage, at least the lap portion of the seatbelt. So you can imagine that in a crash, this seatbelt is going to try to make a straight line between this point and this point. In the average adult occupant, there's only 2 to 3 inches of space between the inside of the mother's spinal column and the front here, this line created by the seatbelt. Now you can imagine if your baby's down in that space, that is probably not going to go very well. So if the seatbelt is being held out in front of the hip bones during the pregnancy, this soft tissue is going to want to compress because this seatbelt is really trying to get to those hip bones to reduce the amount of forward motion that this occupant is going to go forward. So hopefully that gives you a clear understanding of why we're addressing the lap portion of the seatbelt. The shoulder portion of the seatbelt, you can come up just a little bit here. So the shoulder portion of the seatbelt is going to still come mid-chest, mid-shoulder, between the breasts to restrain the upper part of the body. As this body is going to want to go forward in the crash, the shoulder belt is going to prevent that from happening, and that's not going to really change during the pregnancy. So I'm going to take this opportunity while Amy puts the camera back to swap out here. Now I'm going to show you what an occupant utilizing the tummy shield looks like. So first, we're going to start off showing you what the tummy shield is. When you open the box, this is what's inside. It looks like a cushion with a seatbelt buckle coming off the back. So what we're doing here is the occupant is going to be sitting on this in the car. And then I'll show you towards the end what's actually inside here. So this piece right here is an extension panel to help fit the adjustment of this anchor point to various sized occupants. So we're going to take this off because our crash test dummy, our mannequin that we're going to use next doesn't need it. This strap here goes around the vehicle seat back and buckles in. Now, its job is not to restrain you. The function of this strap is to help keep this in place, especially when it's not being used in the car. So if you leave this in the car and somebody else is driving, this is in the passenger seat, it's not going to become a projectile during a crash. So that's how the seatbelt, the tummy shield, is going to install in the car. And then let me grab the mannequin here. And this is Gigi. She's our mannequin dummy helper here. So what we're going to do, or what you would do as the occupant, is you're going to take the vehicle seatbelt like you normally would do and just buckle it in. Now, you'll notice that the lap portion of the seatbelt here is being held in front of, or anterior to, those hip bones. What we're going to do is we're going to just generate some slack in that seatbelt and slip it down in between the legs into the anchor point on the tummy shield, and then just pull the slack back out of it. Now what you see is that the occupant is being restrained by the legs and not the abdomen or the upper part of the pelvis. So the femurs are the strongest parts of the body. So this is how the tummy shield works, but one of the first questions that Amy and I asked ourselves before we started importing and selling this, promoting this product, is how big of a problem was this? Now, I knew as a paramedic that pregnant women were at a much higher risk of injury and severe injuries from paramedic school. That was something we covered a lot. But what I didn't know was how frequently I was going to encounter this. So we started doing our homework. We came across at least 25 different studies, and the list actually just continues to expand. And we're going to provide you a link to that list of studies. But there are at least an estimated 170,000 pregnant women involved in motor vehicle crashes in the United States alone. Now, of those, it's an estimated 3,000 pregnancies are lost every year. So that's a pregnancy that ends in a stillbirth or a miscarriage as a result of being involved in a crash. But why don't we have an actual number? Part of the reason is there's not actually any medical tracking system in place to track if a miscarriage was caused by a traumatic event, including a car crash, unless it's actually miscarried at that hospital visit. But let's say mom's involved in a car crash today and ends up being diagnosed with a miscarriage in 6 weeks. There's no mechanism in the medical reporting to trace that back to the event of the car crash, and there's not really any investigation either. Unfortunately, kind of a fact is that in the US, around the world really, if there's no birth certificate, there's no death certificate, and the cause of death is listed on the death certificate. So it's just an unknown number, and different studies have come up with different numbers varying from several hundred every year to several over 7,000 every year. So we kind of went with the mid number of around 3,000 pregnancies a year are lost. Another way to look at it is a study that came out in 2015 talked about that a woman during the 9 months of pregnancy, that the developing baby was at 5 times the risk of fatal injuries from a car crash during the 9 months of pregnancy, as opposed to the 9 months after they're born when they're in a properly installed rear-facing child restraint system. So in other words, the baby is at 5 times the risk of being fatally injured during pregnancy as opposed to when they're outside the womb in a certified child restraint system car seat. So with that being said, why haven't we heard about this? Why have most of you not heard about the tummy shield? The reality is that most doctors have never heard of this. Many doctors are not aware of the magnitude of the problem, and there are no federal guidelines. There are no federal certification standards for this category of safety product. If you think about a child's car seat, there's a whole volume of federal motor vehicle safety standards that regulate the performance of children's car seats at the various stages. This category of product is unregulated. It's just a consumer product. Now, ideally, as a company, one of our goals is to get that changed at the federal legislative level. But until then, it creates a huge problem for you all, the consumer. And that problem is that anything goes. In other words, there are no safety regulations. So there are competing products. I'm going to grab or a couple of them real quick. There are some other competing products on the market that are made from webbing and soft foam. This one here is made from plastic, and it clips onto the seat differently. And the problem with these is they're not crash tested, they're not rated. But more importantly, it might feel like it's going to do the right thing or going to do the same thing as the tummy shield up until the moment of a crash. And then all bets are off because who knows how it's going to perform. Let's do some quick math. What we teach parents when we're talking children and car seats is speed times weight. So the speed of the car at the time of the crash times the weight of the occupant. So let's say our occupant here is 100 pounds going 30 miles an hour. That's a pretty common speed. I think most car crashes are 30 miles an hour or less. You can hit 30 miles an hour in the grocery store parking lot, right? So 30 miles an hour times the weight of the occupant, 3,000 pounds of restraining force are going to be applied to this seatbelt. So you definitely want that anchor point that you're using to redirect the seatbelt to hold at least that much force, that much energy. The tummy shield is engineered to be at least as strong as the seatbelt. And then, so in the federal standards, the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards that regulate the seatbelt system, and that's FMVSS 208 and 209, it regulates the strength, the braking strength of the seatbelt. It regulates the strength of the components of the seatbelt. So the tummy shield has been tested strength-wise to those standards and meets or exceeds those standards. And then it was dynamically crash tested in a crash lab on the crash test sled, and performed beautifully and demonstrated that the occupant using the tummy shield is equally protected to the occupant just using the seatbelt. So there are no federal standards. And this may be a shocker to some of you, but there's nothing in the federal standards that actually regulates the seatbelt safety for pregnant women. there's nothing tested. This is just the system that was built in the cars, and what your doctor, the medical community, the safety community, the federal government, everybody is just telling you with the best practice recommendations that that's the best way to use the seatbelt that's in the car. We believe the tummy shield, redirecting the seatbelt this way, is actually a better way to do it. So how's the tummy shield built? Inside the tummy shield is 8 pounds of stainless steel plate, which is molded into a foam cushion and then covered with the fabric blanket or fabric cover. So this is what's actually doing the restraining of you, the occupant, using it. And as an example here, or a little contrast, this right here, this is a seatbelt system that we took out from the crash testing that we did. This is the anchor that bolts your seatbelt to the vehicle. So compare the tummy shield to this, and you should feel pretty safe. The last thing to talk about is, what are the best practice tips that you're going to use whether you're using the tummy shield or not? First and foremost, you're going to, when possible, not be the driver, because unfortunately that steering wheel is an outside force that can negatively impact the pregnancy during a crash, impact the baby. You're going to position yourself as far from that steering wheel as possible if you do have to drive. If possible, you're going to tilt that steering wheel up towards your face and not point it at your belly. When you're in the occupant or the passenger side, what you're going to do is you're going to move that seatbelt as far back from the airbag as possible so that that passenger side airbag doesn't impact the baby or your pregnancy as well. So move your seat back when possible. Be the passenger or don't take the trip. Make sure you're well rested before the trip. There's one study that showed that car crashes actually increase specifically during the second trimester of pregnancy. So just make sure that you're well rested, that you're non-distracted. And for Amy, my wife, here, that seatbelt was the #1 distraction while she was driving. It drove her absolutely nuts. So consider that. Using the tummy shield, we got you a coupon code, should be pinned up on the chat, but if not, the code is Prego 2020, and that's for $15 off the tummy shield. And I guess that's all of the question, or all of the things that we had to say about the tummy shield. Brody, can you come over here can you get it? So at Safe Ride for Kids, we actually have a couple different products. Our other core product is called the Ride Safer Travel Vest. Now, the Ride Safer Travel Vest is a certified child restraint system that's certified for a minimum of 3 years old and 30 pounds. And then there's 3 sizes. There's small, large, and extra large. And the extra large goes all the way up to 110 pounds. So this is my little goofball, Brody. Come on over here. Come over here so they can see you. So this is the Ride Safer vest. The way that the Ride Safer works is it's going to position the lap portion of the seatbelt here. And if with your child sitting in the car, this is going to sit on the tops of their thighs. Then the shoulder belt is actually held in place by these adjustable seatbelt guides on the shoulder. So think of it like a booster seat. It's keeping the lap belt low and the shoulder belt mid-shoulder. It also comes with a tether strap, which hooks into these anchor points here. And then this goes over the vehicle seat and tethers in just like any other forward-facing car seat. The tether is optional as long as the vehicle has a shoulder belt. If the vehicle has a lap belt, like a school bus or something like that, a lap-only seat belt, the tether is required to provide that upper body restraint with the internal harness. The tether is allowed to be used in addition to the shoulder belt, just for pre-crash positioning. If you have any questions, you can visit all the info that we have on our website. Thanks for joining us today. This is the end of what I have. Feel free to come over to our booth, Safe Ride for Kids booth, and we will be hanging out there in the chat to answer all your questions. Thanks so much. Have a great day.